Hello everybody, Prowl here, and we are in Reforj feedback mode currently. I've been streaming Reforj, we've done some showcase videos of features, and I have a decent amount of time in the game now. And of course, being a pre-alpha tester, one of the main things they want is feedback. So I wanted to invite you with me on the feedback, or also I'm going to be posting this with the feedback document that I have made, so the developers can see it if they want extra context on top of what is in there. And I'll just say that if you agree or disagree with the feedback that I have, either is fine, but I'll ask you to do one thing. I'll ask you to go into the comment section below and then type in your thoughts. So that way, 4J, they can maybe see some of your comments here or in the feedback post if you're in their Discord, and they can see what you think. Am I alone on this hill in my feedback, or do you guys agree? What points do you agree with? What points do you not agree with? But I think I have some really good feedback here that's going to help make this already good game that is heading in a good direction a whole lot better. And I'm starting with terrain here because actually I think their terrain is one of their best features so far in the game. I like the way that the terrain generates, and I think with some tweaks it can go from really good to perfect, like literally perfect. So let's go over it. I have a few categories here. I'll be kind of glancing over to my right to look at the document, and if you want to see the document, you can go into their Discord server. It'll be posted in there. Okay, so my first piece of feedback and why I'm on top of a mountain is world height. The current game's world height is 255 blocks. About 190 of those blocks are above ground and about 60 blocks below ground, approximately. So that's kind of how much height you have to play with, and I don't think it's enough. It's going to restrict the player in creativity, where they can do things, what they can do things. It's going to hurt some generation we'll talk about a little bit later with the caves and underground. I'm not super happy with cave and underground generation. Some of it's okay, but they don't have a lot of room to work with. So also oceans, which first of all are kind of hard to find. I'll bring that up a little bit later too. But bigger bodies of water generally, they can't really go very deep because again, you don't have a lot of room to work with below that like sea level. So there's that problem as well. If you do have a deeper ocean, you wouldn't really have any room for any kind of caves underneath them. So there's all these different types of things. The end result, or my end synopsis here, is 255 blocks world height is it's just not enough, especially if this game is going to be a big thing for a long time and continue to grow, and they're going to want to add stuff in the future. We're going to want to expand that world height now rather than realize that we need to do it 3 to 5 years from now. Okay, so here's my suggestions. So my first suggestion is we change the world height from 255 to 384. Now, this part is not as important how we label it, but I want to put this in here because I feel like it's good and it makes sense. Reforj, you guys could listen to this part or not, it's up to you. But upon changing the world height, I would make sea level down here, I would make sea level 0. Sea level would be Y level 0. When you travel below sea level, you go into the negative coordinates. When you go above sea level, you have the positive coordinates. I think it just makes sense. In a real world scenario, we usually talk about things in below or above sea level. So below would indicate a negative and above would indicate a positive. It's going to give good reference points for the player too. Players can very easily learn, okay, the lowest point that water can generate is negative 42. That's easy to remember. You're 42 blocks below sea level. You also know that that means the water is 42 blocks deep. On the flip side, sea level being 0 would mean that if you go to the top of a mountain, and that mountain is at Y level 255, then you know that that mountain is 255 blocks tall, or whatever it is, 190 blocks tall, whatever we end up being. I think I have some suggestions here a little bit later. But it makes it so easy to determine a lot of different things and just to remember where things are and give a good reference point that everybody can understand. So that's that. Oh, and one more thing is if we set the sea level as 0, and we have positive above and negative below, it makes it pretty easy. If for some reason in the future, Reforj wants to make the world height higher or lower, you just add on to the positive or add on to the negative, and it doesn't really throw things out of whack. Players will always be used to that. They'll just understand, okay, the world got deeper or the world got higher, or if modding's a thing later, it makes it easier there too. It's just easier reference all around. It just makes sense. So moving on beyond that, however you label it, what I would do is I would have 256 blocks above sea level be the world height, and 128 blocks below sea level be the world depth. And I would cut off generation at where it is right now, which would be about, in my new naming scheme, 190 blocks above sea level. So 190 blocks above sea level, this is where your generation would cut off from terrain, and then you could build another like 60-ish blocks above that. So it gives you plenty of room. That would mean that mountains like this that right now generate at almost world height, meaning this is a cool mountain, like it could be kind of fun to build a tower or something up here, but I don't have any world height to do it. But it feels really cool to be this high above everything. This would be such a great place to be able to build something. We can't build anything here currently, so I'm restricted from being able to do that. I would have to find a smaller mountain that has these kind of cool peaks. So instead, if the world height were to extend another 40-50 blocks up from where I'm standing right now, that'd be kind of cool. I would have room to build that thing and sit up high above the world and be able to look down on what's going on down there. Pretty cool thing. So I think that that would work perfectly. Also, down in the caves, and the caves, it could be a little hard to find them and stuff, but if I speak about the caves really quick here in relation to world height, as of right now, you only have about 60 blocks below ground level, depending on where your ground is, to like have caves generate, which means that it's kind of hard to have these like really big expansive caves that you can see in for a long time, have a ton of height, or have these big chasms in the ground where like you can just have generation to where the ground is opened up. You can look down and like see all the way down to the bottom of the world. It'll look really cool. Or if you just want to build something really big underground, currently the only way you would be able to do that is to find a really big mountain that's going to suit your needs and build underneath that and inside of that mountain. So we would definitely open up a lot of creativity, possibly farms, if farming is a thing in the future in Reforj, or other like machinery type technology. A lot of times we as people like to build that stuff underground because we can hide it and then have the aesthetic part of our build be above ground, or we like big expansive bases and some people like to build that underground, or maybe some of the farms that could be possible in the future will require a lot of space and we need space to put those things underground. 60 or less blocks is not going to be enough for that, but 128 blocks definitely will be. So it'll help your generation. It'll help you make cave biomes in the future be a thing. It'll help you have different types of caves spawn, unlike what seems to be the kind of random generation of noise underground right now that makes up caves. We can have different types of caves, and all those things will be made possible by an extended Y level. The next thing I want to point out is world size. World size currently is 4096 by 4096, and it infinitely loops. Most of you guys probably know that, but if you don't, that's how the world works. That's how big it is. And this is nice, but I don't think it's big enough. So I have actually two recommendations, one of which is going to recommend to make the world size bigger. The other one doesn't involve that, but still gives you a bigger world when you start the game, if that makes sense. So with the world size being 4096 by 4096 and being, in my estimation, kind of small, you have two options as the development team and how you do biomes. I feel like I've done option one here, which is you make the biomes smaller so you can fit more of those biomes in the world. The downside, the plus side to that is you get a lot of biome diversity. You can have a lot of different biomes, or you have the same biome that generates in different ways in different areas, especially if they're going to do like sub biomes that are part of like a core biome family. Like you have a couple variations of plains or the pine forests or mountains or whatever. Okay. But you're going to see a lot of repeating biomes, and when you go into them, you're not going to have that feeling of expansiveness and size. You're always going to be in this position where as you're traveling and you get into a biome, you're always going to see the next biome or the next couple of biomes to go into. You're not really going to find yourself in a position where you're in the middle of a plains biome and everywhere you look is plains, and you kind of feel like, oh man, like I'm really like lost in here in a good way. Like I'm adventuring, I'm exploring, trying to find my way out of this plains biome. And then you get into a jungle biome, and then you feel like you're kind of lost in that. And that's, again, a good thing. You might want to kind of have that lost and explorative and curious feeling of how do I get out of here? When does this thing end? Or if you build in it, you don't want to be able to sit in the center of your biome and see out of it in all directions. Your aesthetic you might be, I want it to be jungle all around. So if you go the small biome route, you miss out on that. If you go the other way, you go the large biome route in the 4096 by 4096 size, then you're going to have a lot of biomes missing. Your world might be 3, 4, 5 biomes, and that's it. And then there not be like you wouldn't have any room to repeat any. You couldn't have like 2 plains biomes in the same world. Or if it's random generation, maybe you do have 2 plains biomes in the same world, and like half of your world is plains. So that can be a bad thing as well, because you do get that feeling of immersiveness and size, but then you don't get that feeling of variety. I've traveled around a whole lot, and I just keep coming back to the same big plains biome again and again. So that's our 2 problems right now. What is our solutions to fix them? So as I said earlier, I have 2 different possibilities. First of all, let's make the world size bigger. That's possibility or solution number 1. Let's double the size. We'll go up to 8192 by 8192. You could then increase the biome size and have multiple biomes per world, and you get that feeling of expansiveness, and you get the variety of biomes, and the world's just going to feel, I mean, it's literally at that time, it's 4 times larger in total area than it otherwise is. The world's going to feel huge, which is going to be kind of cool. You're never going to, because as the world works right now, if it's 4,000 blocks and it loops, that means that you're always 2,000 blocks away from the furthest point. So I can travel 2,000 blocks this way or 2,000 blocks that way. I come to that same spot if I'm going in the right direction. If I'm going at the same angle, I would come to the same spot. 2,000 blocks in either direction is the 4,000 blocks that the world size is. So it just doesn't feel very big. 4,000 blocks isn't that far to travel, or 2,000 blocks isn't that far to travel. So if we can double the world size, the world dimensions, meaning we quadruple the size, you get the big biomes, you get the feeling of grandness inside of your world, even though it's still restricted. And then the looping, I feel like, means that much more, where you can continue to loop around your world. And it's gonna take you a little while to explore 8,000 blocks. It really is. But maybe that's not possible due to performance restrictions, right? I'm sure you guys picked the size the way you did for reasons. So if we can't, that's the preferred way. But if we can't do that, I have another solution. We keep the world the same size, the 4096. You switch to large biomes instead of smaller ones. So you have less biomes per world, but they're bigger. And when somebody starts out, there are already existing gateways in the world. 2, 3, 4, something like that, whatever you think makes sense. I think 3 is probably a good number. And then those gateways can either be where the player spawns, probably not, I don't think I like that, but they could be, or they can just be in random places in the world. And maybe the tutorial in the game tells people that there are some already functional gateways or something. So then you can do the larger biome size, and there's already existing gateways ready to go in the world. So you kind of feel like the world starts out larger, even though it doesn't. Even though it starts out just like it does today, the world feels like it starts out larger because you have gateways to go find and then go into and then see what is in them. And if Reforj really wanted to ensure that the player at that point is going to have some biome diversity, they could make those first couple spawning gateways maybe have a lower chance to include biomes that the original, like that each other has. So they kind of have like an exclusionary thing. So the player is guaranteed to have diversity between the world they're in and the 2 or 3 other portals that they can go into. And that would solve the problem. You go with the large biomes, just like you would in the larger world size, but you're getting your larger world size effectively using gateways instead. I like that idea. I think it works good. I like this idea better than just telling the player to, hey, just go find, just like get a little bit later game and get gateways to go to another world, because then we're still dealing with the smaller biomes that we have today. Not good. And you're restricting that player's ability to explore a larger world early on. So you're just starting in a smaller world versus starting in what seems like a bigger one because the gateway's already there. It might be a good way to introduce people to gateways too. I don't know, but that's how I feel about world size. Next, let's talk about water generation. I think Reforj Studios already knows about this and is already working on it, but water generation, there's too many of these like large rivers. There's almost no oceans. I think I've only seen one thing that I would consider to be an ocean. this is another problem with the smaller world size too, is how do you put a 1,000+ block long like ocean in a 4,000 block world, because it's literally taking up a quarter of the world as water and is not usable to the average person. But if your world's bigger, then you don't have to worry about that. But I digress. Bigger bodies of water are needed. These smaller bodies of water being everywhere are not. I think currently what's happening is that bodies of water are dividing biomes frequently. That needs to not happen. We just need some biome blending, and then the bodies of water can lay out randomly on top of the already existing biomes rather than being on the lines of biomes. Everything, of course, right now feels like it's on just its own island. Like everything is an island. So here's the plains island right here, for example, and then there's the mountain island right there. This is consistent across all worlds. I've made a few. I've gone through them. They all generate the same way with only a couple very small exceptions. So that's something I think needs to be fixed, and would make the game really just feel a lot bigger, because when everything's divided by water, first, it's annoying to go across water, at least right now. Maybe it'll be a little bit better in the future. And second, when everything feels divided, it doesn't really feel like you're going anywhere. You don't get a feeling of grandness or vastness of the world. It just feels like I'm going to the next room in another game or something. Now, I just have a couple of other additional like general concerns. Number one, the mountain biomes, way too much. They just appear way too often. I love the way the mountains look. They're probably my favorite feature, but they appear too frequently. Number two is the noise. I'm going to describe it as noise. I don't know what the proper term would be, but the noise in the terrain, I think, is used too frequently. I like the noise when it does pop up. Like, I like the look of this individual area, for example. The way it's so broken is kind of cool looking. But it feels like this gets applied to almost everywhere. There's some instances of like a pure plains biome that it doesn't apply to. But otherwise, everything kind of always feels too broken, and I don't like that. Here's the jungle type area on broken terrain with very large differences in height variation. Everywhere is like this. I would like this type of generation to be like, as we see it right now, like this broken. Maybe if I see that 15 to 25% of the time, that would feel okay, and I would really like be in awe when I see it. It would feel really cool. And then the other 75-85% of the time, it needs to be toned down versions of that, or not existent at all. We need to smooth it out. So let me find a good area that I think would be an example. So let's say we have areas that were like what we just saw, and I want to keep some of those areas. So let's keep that one. Let's find one that I would change. So here we go. Here's a good example. So for every one area like that I find, I would like to take 3 of these types of areas and redo them completely. Because this, you're basically making it so the only place that's like good for like a easy-ish time to build is a plains biome, and I don't like that. I might want to build in a jungle biome or on the edge of a mountain or something like that. And if everything is all of this really steep, noisy, up and down, Y-level terrain, I can't do it. I can't do that. So maybe some of these that you find, maybe this type of area would be much more flat. Instead of a variation of, I don't know how many this is, like 30, 40 blocks in world height from the lowest point to the highest point, maybe some of these areas, they would have a 10 block variation where it's just a little bit of like a smooth curve. Maybe you won't have anywhere near as many of these rock formations. A couple are cool. I like it because it adds some color to the terrain, but not this much. Maybe some of these areas would be a little bit more and a little bit less. Maybe some of them would be almost all the way flat. But having almost every single area that you go to that's not a flat plains biome be super like height challenging, whatever word I want to use here, it's not going to be fun to build in. Everybody's going to want to build in a flat area for the most part. This is where 90% of players like to build, is something flat. And as the generation currently stands, the only place that anybody is going to build is in a plains biome, except for your people that like a really crazy challenge. Also, when it comes to your mountains, I love them. Maybe having some features where, like, I don't know, an area like this right here that kind of looks like it was trying to flatten out a little bit, flattens out a little bit more. So I have these little lips that come off the mountains that I can build on or something. Have some like shelves, for example, would be pretty neat and be pretty awesome. Also, I feel like a lot of the mountains have these little lakes in them, which I love. This is actually one of my favorite features, but I feel like it exists in almost any one of these little like craters that are inside of the mountains. Definitely make sure that you give us some of these that are just flat land or flat-ish land. That way we can build in it and it's not just covered in water. Again, I like these. I still want this to exist. I wish it was a waterfall because that'd be really cool, but I've seen those. Those are cool too. I want them to exist, but give me some variation again, because almost every single time, if there's a dip in the mountain, it's water in it almost every single time, which it makes sense geologically, but it's a video game. I want some flat area to build in too sometimes. Here's a good, actually, this is a good example of what I would like to see a little bit more of in the terrain. Like you have a height difference here, but it's created a large shelf. Shelves are cool. I like shelves because it gives me a big flat area to build in, but it makes the world interesting because there's this generation like this. But again, here's all of the noise. All of these rocks all the way through here and all over every single hill. It's too much. I think it's too much. So I would get rid of a lot of it. I still want some of it, but I would tone that down or make it appear like again 75% less than it does now, and give me more smooth terrain, or make these features a little bit smaller so they look like breaks in a terrain rather than the entire thing. Another thing I'm going to point out is tree density. I don't know if it's intended to stay like this or not, but tree density is very poor currently. And the plains biome, again, like this makes sense. Like if I'm going into a plains and I have like trees scattered across like this, okay, I like that. Like that's fine. That's okay. I can maybe have some little patches of trees here and there, but like I wouldn't complain too much about it, even if it stayed exactly like it is today. But like this right here, I think is supposed to be like a jungly area. I'm pretty sure it's jungle tree. And I know we'll get like actual proper jungle biomes later, but no matter where you look, any forest that exists right now, there's almost no density to the trees. So again, there's no feeling of I can get lost in here. If I'm in a jungle or if I'm in a forest, I want to not really have sight that far ahead of me. I want to feel like I'm lost in the woods. Also, it's just nice to have a lot of trees to chop down for wood. But even if it's not for wood, maybe I want to build in a dense forest and I want to carve out my own space, or maybe I just want to explore, and the forest being denser makes it a little bit harder to explore because you can't see as far in front of you. I would love that. That would look really good. A dense forest like a dense forest like a jungle, there should be almost no area where if I was above it and I look down that I can see ground, or if I'm down below that I can look up and see sky. There should be very few areas, which by the way, another feedback topic would be the leaves need to be transparent, I think. And then it would make a little bit more sense to have dense forestry. Right now, with the leaves all being just solid blocks, it would kind of be a nightmare probably. So the leaves need to have like a transparency layer to them, and then as they stack on each other, the transparency lowers and lowers when it comes to sunlight bleeding through, or you being able to see through the transparency of the leaves and that sort of thing. But even like going to these pine areas, like these things are just so spread out. It's very weird. This is not how forest generates. This is not how forest grows in real life. The trees are going to be really close together. So I would like to see a lot more of that. I want to feel like I'm running through a forest. You can have varying densities, but I would say from what we see right now, we need to increase on the low end 2 times, on the high end 5 times of what the current tree density is, almost everywhere outside of the plains, or biomes that you specifically make to be less dense forests. And otherwise, I think that's it. I know that was a lot of like feedback. It can sound negative in a way. Don't take it that way. I love the generation. Like I've found so many jaw-breaking moments jaw-dropping moments. Jaw-breaking. Wow, you guys are really getting good. Jaw-dropping moments to where like I just love what I see, but I want to make it more usable without losing that charm of how good it is. And I think the feedback I gave would do that. I think it's going to make players feel like they want to stay in their worlds and doing things longer. They're going to have less time of like less instances of running out of things to do, less instances of feeling like they're bored or they've done everything, more instances of finding inspiration of areas to do stuff in. It's going to work out better for you when you start adding in, hopefully, structures for us to explore, PvE challenges for us to undertake, and all sorts of stuff. So that's my feedback. I hope it helps. I hope it makes sense. I hope that we can do some of these things. Again, I said this earlier, I'll say it again. If you're still watching, sound off in the comments below. Like, do you agree or disagree with different points that I made? Which ones do you agree with and why? Which ones do you disagree with and why? And if anybody in 4J is still watching this, if you want me to elaborate further or you want to have discussion on it, I'm here. I'm open. Just let me know. But hopefully this explained it pretty well. Appreciate you guys for watching today, and you have a good one.